You are now in tune to the Keys to the City podcast.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Keys to the City. I'm your host, Trevor Keys, alongside the big brother T3 and the Joseph Aguirre, joining us live from vacation. That's how you know it's a big deal, because this man's on vacation right now with the family, and we got an emergency podcast right now because, ladies and gentlemen, it is dark times for us New York baseball fans. But shockingly, you would have to say maybe that the Mets actually have a brighter future, because the Mets actually at least know what they want to do moving forward, where the New York Yankees do not know what the hell they want to do moving forward. Today's episode, I got to call Joe. What do you think of this? Today's episode is called The Curse of the Bambino 2.0. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that's how it feels like. Me and Ted were talking about it yesterday, and Ted's trying to defend his points as usual, but his points sometimes just don't make sense. I guess I should just say, clear it on the air right now, live, that I guess you guys were right now, that the New York Yankees looks like their playoff hopes and dreams may be coming to a crashing and depressing halt. Because right now, the New York Yankees are currently one game under 500, 6.5 games back in the AL wild card. Forget about the division. They're just trying to pray and hope that they get into a wild card game. And honestly, when you look at it, when you see this team, do we even want this team to make the wild card game? Because what we've seen in the past, 20 years has been nothing but disappointment results in the postseason. So that's what I'm saying. Why do we I want to see the Yankees do well, but I don't want to see them get to this, get hot, somehow miracle way, get into the postseason, and then get, embarrassed, eviscerated like they've been
waste of time
in the past couple years. So let's talk about it. Joseph, like I said, this is an emergency podcast because Joseph is here on vacation and the New York Yankees suck. Awful from top to bottom. This kind of reminds me, listening to all the videos, kind of just reminds me of a couple years ago when the New York Giants had this same problem, dealing with a coach like Joe Judge and Aaron Boone, who kind of is just trying to cover his ass, but it seems like it's almost too late. You got a GM, Brian Cashman, way too old, out of his league. It's time to make a change. Just like the Giants, Dave Gettleman, time to make a change. I think, you got to think about it. Brian Cashman's been a GM for 27 years. You know what it reminds me of, Joe? It's like these politicians that have been in all these offices that for 50, 60 years. You're like, yo, I think unless you're doing a fantastic job, then okay. But 50, 60, 30 years, and if you're you haven't done much to prove, whether it's the country or it's your team, then I think it's time to make a change, Joe. And you look at this Yankee team, I don't know what else to say. You have two top 10 players. One should win the Cy Young, and one we know how great and valuable he is to the game of baseball, not just the Yankees, that they're completely wasting, Joe. And it's just sad to see. It's unfortunate.
So I'm going to give you a couple numbers, and this diagnoses the problem. The Yankees are 56-20 when they score more than 3 runs. Mm-hmm. They are 2-33 when they score 2 runs or less.
Yeah.
They have gone 50-50 in their last 100 games. They are 99-101 in their last 200 games. This has been a team of mediocrity. Mm-hmm. And it's been now for about a year and a half that we've seen this. I hate to say this, but going into this season, I was not particularly optimistic. You basically ran it back. We knew Rondon was hurt before he even got there.
Yeah.
You expected a regression from Nestor Cortez, who's obviously been out. The Severino thing is hard to even understand, but look at this lineup. I mean, they don't score. Nobody ever gets more than 1 hit in a game. It's so rare to go through the Yankees box score and see somebody go 2 for 4. It just never happens. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really been their biggest issue. Aaron Judge has pointed out guys are pressing, and I mean, you're 6.5 games outside of the last wild card spot.
Yep.
You can't really piece anything together. They've been miserably terrible against anybody who's good. They've struggled with everybody's pitching. I mean, it's some of the guys that they've lost to, going back right out of the All-Star break through just the last couple of weeks. I mean, you're not even getting dominated by great pitchers. You're getting dominated by anybody. Anybody who shows up pretty much seems to own the Yankees. This team just can't score runs. It's not the bullpen's fault. The starting rotation's a disaster, and yet
with the exception of Cole, it is. With the exception of Cole, it's just been an absolute disaster.
Outside of the American League Cy Young Award winner, yeah, the rest of this rotation is terrible, to the point that Isaiah Kiner-Falefa has a lower ERA than Clay Holmes. Like, that's where we are right now.
It's pretty fascinating to know that we've had to use IKF a couple times this season for pitching relief.
4 times.
Like the New York Yankees are using utility hitters. Just put that into perspective.
I hate to say this too. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is the only guy in this team who's hitting over 300 with runners in scoring position, and he did this. He hit 327 last year in this, so he comes through and he delivers. No one else is clutch. No one else is coming up with big hits, and it kills them night after night.
Yeah,
there's so much. There's just so much to say because I feel like at this point we have belittled the point. We know they suck. Like, that's what it's done. But I told you this.
But do they know?
Hold on. They know. They know it. They just don't want to admit it.
You got to admit it.
So I want to just throw some quick numbers out, and then we can get into the bullshit and of going back and forth and discussing where we think the flaws were from beginning from last year
into the bullshit
to the stuff now, because really that's what it is. We're gonna get Joe was saying, last 100 games, whatever, they're below 500, they're awful. They've won one series since July 1st. One series, or 1-9-3.
And who was that against?
I don't know and don't care.
I was against the Royals. I was against the Royals.
I don't care.
Doesn't matter.
That was the one series I think after there. Since Judge's injury from June 3rd, they're 25-36, so 11 games below 500, a 224 batting average, 3.8 runs per game. So here's the other thing I wanted, the last stat, and then we can get into the other stuff. Since July 4th, this team was 10 games above 500. And they are 12-23 and have been outscored by 51 runs since July 4th. So this isn't just a Judge problem. This is a team problem. Now, Trev, remember we got into the discussion the other day and you were like, you're trying to back up and support Boone. I'm like, I kind of am. For the first time, I am going to kind of support Boone. Because you got to go back to last year's sweep of the ALCS. That's where this all starts. And actually, you can go back even farther. I have a whole article right in front of me. I'm not going to break it down now because then I'll talk for 20 minutes and you guys will break my stones. But this goes back to you got swept by the Astros last year. This is the third time you've gotten beaten in the ALCS in the last 5-6 years, and it's all been to the Astros. With that being said, you should have went all in. You should have did something drastic this year, all in. Whatever that was. That wasn't just a Rendon move. That was drastic moves with this team because the first time you played him, you almost had him. And now we understand what happened there. Then we got lost in Game 7, whatever. And then we got swept. And you could tell that the Astros were still progressing and we were not progressing. So what's that say? You're a Yankee guy. You're a Cashman. You're Hal Steinbrenner. The old guy, now I understand this was back in the day, would have said, Joe, we're going to put all our chips on the table and we're going to go all in, like kind of the Mets did this year. If it went bad, at least Yankee fans would have respected, I think, and said, hey, listen, we went for it. We did everything we could. They just sucked. Things didn't work out. But when you don't make any significant moves during the offseason, your team has been the same pretty much. Rendon, as you spoke about before, coming off an injury. You traded for Montas last season, knowing that Montas had a shoulder issue last year, and he even admitted in the offseason he misses the whole season, okay? Rendon has multiple injuries. He's out for the whole season. Let's see. What else? Cortez, out for the season. He's been on the AL all season. Herman, if he's not drunk, he's throwing a perfect game. Now he's out for the season or he's beating his girlfriend/wife. Severino's been the worst pitcher in baseball. So you're talking about a starting rotation right there. Excluding Cole, that would be one of the top rotations if healthy, but that's a big if. It's injuries, it's problems. It's culminated to a disaster of a season. And the bullpen is leaking now. The duct tape has held on for like 3 or 4 years. It's not the same. There is no Chapman, Holmes, and Stanton, and Nelson, and boom, 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 and guys just repetitively coming in. Andrew Miller. There's the guys that were used to coming in the bullpen where we're going 6, 7, 8, game over. It's not there no more. I was going to use a bad phrase, but you've overused the same water fountain. You had to change it up. The same water bottle has now got mildew in it. Like, you got to mix it up and wash it out. This team has multiple problems, and we could break it down. The pitchers, they're not a good team. And the last thing I want to say to this, so then we can build off, is the worst thing that happened to the Yankees was baseball changed their rules. Sorry, boys. The old big power hitters who go base by base or wait for strikeout doesn't work no more. All the teams that are winning and successful this year are all youthful, athletic, and play with high energy. What are the Yankees? They're old. They're based on power. They can't run. And they're not in the new age. Think about all the teams that are doing really well. The Orioles, young. Braves, young. I mean, the teams that are successful are able to steal bases, go first to third, not wait for the big home run. That's the difference. The Yankees are old, and we've seen it, bro. Trev, you and me have talked about this. Donaldson, 38 years old. Stanton, old. And I'm not saying age. He was aging before the Yankees got him in 2017. It was the same player. And the worst thing that ever happened, even though all three of us were excited when we were at CSB, we're like, yo, Yankees got Stan. He got Stan for like nickels on the dollar. Jeter knew what he was doing. But here's what happened to the Yankees when you got Stanton. You took your advantage away of ever signing another big free agent during that time because you knew you were going to hopefully sign Judge, all right? You couldn't go get a Machado at third base. You couldn't get a Bryce Harper who wanted to play for the Yankees, who was a Yankee fan, who had the perfect swing for the short porch. It's a culmination of bad moves that have kind of finally bit the Yankees and bit them hard, from the Aaron Hicks deal to the Donaldson trade to, like I said before, with Frankie Montas, where you're like, yeah, he's going to come in. Had a bad shoulder. You knew he had problems, and you traded for him anyways. And a guy like Harrison Bader who can't stay healthy. Would be nice to have Jordan Montgomery now, huh, boys?
Yeah, but here's the overall situation is that, like,
this is a Cashman problem now, bro. This is not
just a Cashman. This is an overall. This is an overall franchise looking in the mirror and time to figure your shit out, because, and Boone said it a couple years ago. I think it was after the wild card game against the Red Sox when they got embarrassed too. And he's like, "Oh, teams are starting to catch up to us." No, it's not that, actually, Boone. It's actually teams have soared by you. That's the hard truth, and that's the problem.
Can I tell you something? Joe Torre, I read his book a few months ago. Joe Torre said that in 2006. The rest of baseball is caught up to us. Yeah. I mean, Boone's like there,
and that was in 2006 is the sense. So we're talking 2023 now.
Years of straight winning seasons. Trev, you said it before when you said Cashman 27. 30 years of straight. You know, we talk about dynasties in other sports. Not many people could say that. 30 years of consecutive winning streaks. Last time they had a below 500 record at this time was Derek Jeter's rookie year in 1995. And the last time they've had a losing season at the end of the season was 1992. Yankee fans are not used to this.
And that's what I'm trying to say. And that's what I'm trying to say is that, like, oh, well, we got to the playoffs. We got to the ALDS. We got into the ALCS. We've won a world. Yeah, I get it. That's like people. We got the peanut gallery over here trying to get out of this room. We got the peanut gallery. We got Toto. Hold on. I'll be right back. You guys got out. Did he?
Yeah, he got out.
They got it. And he's going to start barking too. What a wild dog. He's a little wild dog. He looks like Toto from Wizard of Oz. But, like, as I was saying, like, you look at this franchise, this is an overall bigger picture. It's like I keep harping on it. It's like the Giants when, like, Boone is very similar to Judge and just kind of just saying, oh, we're right there, we're this and that.
It's an organizational problem.
That's what I'm trying to say. It's not just Cashman, it's not just Boone, it's an overall franchise type of move that you need to make.
Players can change that.
But okay, I get it. I understand that, but also look at the teams in the past. Look, I call this show the Curse of the Bambino 2.0 for a reason, because of the fact that let's go right back to just 2004 when I feel like this curse, and I think all Yankee fans are starting to come to the realization that maybe this curse actually hit us. It was in 2004, the epic 3-0 collapse. We all know about it. Yankee fans will never forget about it. Well, since that time, the arch rival of the New York Yankees, yes, the Boston Red Sox, have been this I've been the 4 World Series. I got this. 2004, 2007, 2013, 2018. 6 ALCSs, 4-2 in that span. You know how many times the Yankees have been to the ALCS since that time? You want to know what their record?
2004?
Yeah.
5 times.
They've been there 6 times. Do you want to know what their record is?
1 in 6.
1 in 5. The one World Series
No,
is
I forgot to do the math
2009.
too.
Yes. And here's the thing. The Red Sox have missed more playoffs since that time. The Yankees only 4. But my thing is, Ted, I was talking to you about it yesterday. Oh, well, you would think anytime you get to that's great, of course. But we're the New York Yankees. We've set the standard of winning. And guess what? George Steinbrenner said it back in the day. I will do whatever it takes to winning. All I care about is waking up, breathing, and winning.
But that wasn't always a good thing for that organization.
So us Yankee fans, when people say, oh, well, they're so spoiled, they're this and that, they're always complaining. Well, guess what? Yeah, because since we've been alive, since all of us have been alive, the mantra of the New York Yankees has been win. There's been nothing else. We have not every year we come to the terms of saying all we want is a championship. It's championship or bust because of the fact that this was the message that was portrayed and relayed to us when we were younger as fans. So every year that they do not win a World Series, hell, they haven't even been to the World Series. That's the whole thing. The Kansas City Royals have won a World Series more recently than the New York Yankees. The New York Mets. Now I get it. The New York Mets are the New York Mets. But they've been to a World Series more recently. Like, that's the thing. These teams that we've heard in the past, like, there's teams. We're not the Pirates. We're not the Royals. We're not just expected, hey, we get to the playoffs. That's a winning. No, it's not. So I remember when the Yankees lost, I think it was in 2018 to that Red Sox team. And you guys said it wasn't a disappointment. Shocker, 5 years later, you guys still agree on every little single thing except me. And every year, I've said it's a disappointment. And the reason is because of the message that was sent from George Steinbrenner 30 freaking years ago saying.
Yeah, but it wasn't like he was winning all those. He won 2 titles in the 70s.
I get it, but he did it.
Won for like 20-something years, and then they won 3 out of 4 years. And
I still get it, but it's the message that was it was the message that was relayed to us.
Joe, I told him last night, we sound spoiled. Well,
no shit, we should be because of our boss.
I'm sorry, but people have to be realistic. It's not World Series or bust anymore with the Yankees.
Now it isn't.
The game is different. The game is different. The talent is different. The money is different. George could spend everything. Guess what? There's a guy across town who could spend more money than anyone in baseball, Steve Cohen, and then can watch the money light on fire, like the movie, your favorite movie, the Batman movie, and Joker, light on fire, and go, guess what? We're going to do it again. He doesn't care. Money's not an option. This is not George Steinbrenner. You got to get that out of your head. This is not George. His son is not involved like he is.
I'm not saying him to be George Steinbrenner.
He wants the baseball people that he hired to do their job. Unfortunately, the people he has hired have done a poor job in the decisions, and it has backfired. That's what it comes down to, Trev. Frankie Montas, hurt. Rendon, hurt. The Stan trade. Honestly, He played in less games and he's missed.
Yeah, but these are guys that dealt with injury. These are guys that had a previous injury history before coming to the Yankees.
Here's the other thing.
So why did you bring them?
That's what I'm saying. And the Stan to the trade move. The only move. I'll cut you off right there because you just said the only move that I am generally pissed off about is DJ LeMahieu fell off the face of the earth because I was.
Yes, but here's the thing.
Hold on. I was the biggest advocate of DJ LeMahieu previous of his contract.
Well, we ended up finding out that in 2019, the balls were juiced, so he had a really good season that season. He batted .364 and led the AL. And we ended up finding out
Ted, he was a hitter.
Then he hit really well in 2020, but that was 60 games in a shortened COVID season. And then the Yankees felt like we need to pay this guy 6 or 7 years at 33 years old when we realize that those contracts at 30 plus years, bud, don't pan out. I mean, the Aaron Hicks deal, Joe, Trev, you and me used to bash Aaron Hicks deal. Doesn't sound too good now. It sounded like a bonus, but he played one good season for the Yankees, and they gave him a 7-year deal for $70 million, hoping that he would outperform his contract and the Yankees would get him really cheap, considering. He was an awful center fielder. I know he was a really good center fielder defensively, but then he had his issues hitting. I mean, think about it. He's booed like like he's the worst guy in the world when he plays at Yankee Stadium. We went into the season with no left fielder. We traded for a 38-year-old third baseman, Donaldson, Trev, who we were trying to pretend like it's 2007 again. I mean,
yeah, my point exactly.
That's what bothers me the most. And I get what you're saying. As a Yankee fan, maybe we shouldn't be spoiled, but we are. Because when I look at the Giants, when I look at any of my other teams, bud, I don't look at them as it's World Series, Super Bowl, or whatever bust.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that we look at the Yankees when there's 30 other teams? And guess what? Baseball's different. You think about this. When we grew up as a Yankee fan, Joe maybe can give you a better acknowledgement of this would be Yankees were the top of the food chain, right? You know what I mean? It was such a disparity in money, like even like a big time back in the day, late 90s and into 2000s. Yankees were always like the top food chain, right? You look at the Yankees now, I get it. They're not spending as much, but look at all the other teams that have moved up. And then you look at teams like the Rays. We used to jump on the Rays all the time, bully them like the little kid down under. Guess what? Their farm system and their teaching and their mechanics, that's been their biggest development, where the Yankees, they haven't developed the talent. And that's maybe even more upsetting as a Yankee fan is we won on winning with our guys from the minor league system, and they breed it up. We never breeded anyone up. Judge is the only guy you can really think about logically that would actually have made a significant impact on this team in the past 10 years that we didn't buy.
Go ahead.
Yeah, listen, let me, first of all, Ted's made so many great points, and I'll just
what a freaking surprise.
Let me just back it up too with another
surprise. What am I? Chopped liver?
No, you agree with me on some of the stuff.
No,
I do.
I don't agree with anything you said.
I
Ted.
am going to disagree with a couple of things, but listen,
I agree with everything Ted says, but I'm going to disagree with what Trev has to say.
Trevor said something. No, listen, they're 28th in base running. They've been thrown out 9th most in baseball for a team that doesn't steal a lot or take the extra base. To be 9th in that category, it's embarrassing. But listen, this has been a terribly constructed roster. Like Ted said, you went into the season knowing you didn't have a left fielder. That problem hasn't solved itself. And I don't know what Brian Cashman thought was going to happen with that in mind. Now, like Teddy said, look, in the offseason, when you get close, all right, let's reload. And I said, you remember the day, Trevor, when we talked about this, when they re-signed Judge, I was like, that's like when the Giants signed Leonard Williams. You're bringing the guy back, great, but that doesn't make you a better team. It just means you have less money to spend. And
imagine if he wasn't on the team, Joe. Imagine if he wasn't, how bad this team would be.
Bam. That's, again, gives you a good idea. Look, it's not through trying, right? I mean, listen, Cashman's gone out there and he brought your Rondon and he went out there and he got Joey Gallo. He knew that, this lineup is so insanely right-handed. You would think that this was Fenway Park they're playing at. Look, when you look at the great players in Yankee history, they're all left-handed for a reason. So that was their other big mistake. As far as LeMahieu's concerned, Trevor, give yourself a pass on that. The guy is injured, and he's playing through an injury, and he's been horrible. And I can't help but think if he sat and got healthy, like Aaron Judge did, that you might see a better DJ LeMahieu. Same thing with Rizzo. I feel terrible for Anthony Rizzo. That neck thing has been messing him up all year. He got off to a great start this season. Since the injury, he's been one of the worst everyday players in baseball. But again, you went out there and you've got an old team. When you look at baseball, you look at the way all these other teams have developed, especially the Rays.
Youth.
And look at Baltimore. Look what Baltimore's done. They were terrible, working their way and making those good
Look at Houston. Look at Houston back in the day.
Oh, yeah. And they continue to reload. Look at the Dodgers. The Dodgers, look at the Braves. Where have the Padres gone wrong? Trying to import stuff when you're just develop your talent and bring them up. What are you even doing? Now, listen, here, the Yankees, like Teddy said, in the offseason, you should have reloaded this entire lineup. And you should have went out and you should have gotten a left fielder is what you should have done. At the trade deadline, by standing pat, I mean, what was that? What was that move? To not do anything. What does that do for this franchise?
Kind of just like
But here's what I said too. You guys remember the last show that we had done kind of leading up to that? Who on this team is tradable?
Glaber
Who
was
on
the
this
only one.
other than Glaber? And I said maybe Sevy, and he's been forget about it.
No, nobody would take him.
He's not pitching like a major leaguer right now.
Clay Holmes, maybe a closer needed. And then and here's the thing, Trev, I know you and me sent stuff through Instagram. You know, W fan, which I thought was an awful take, but one of the guys was like, maybe they should have traded Cole and got a ton of prospects. But the only problem I have with that is, and this is not football and draft picks and other things, half the guys that they trade for, none of the prospects even do anything. Go look at all the prospects that the Yankees have traded over the years. Has anyone ever even hurt the Yankees? No. But here's the thing, and you know what would happen? They'd retool, and then next year, what would be our problem? Oh, we need an ace. Oh, the guy you just traded. Like Met fans are like, oh, we retooled. Really? You retooled that much? You got that much for Verlander? Like, you got top prospects? Really?
You've gotten rid of 3 of the best aces in baseball in the last 2 years. I would just stop being a Mets fan at this point.
And Trevor, think about this, Trevor.
But here's the thing about the Mets.
That's the Met thing. Hold on. None of those prospects are going to be ready to make an impact next year. Look at what Scherzer's doing for Texas.
Okay, but guess what? Here's the thing about the Mets. We can say whatever we want about the Mets. At least they know that they have some sort of direction. Like, we got to go full rebuild. We got to change. And we got a GM that knows that will spend. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but
the Yankees are like you staring at a wall. It's just like there's nothing to look at. You have nothing clear. There's just literally a blank wall. Like, what are we doing? Are we thinking about the future? Are we like taking a step back? Are we like going to bring in everybody back? Like, there's so many questions. Like think about the questions that are going to surround this Yankee team, especially if they don't make the postseason, guys. Like 30 years. They've been in the.
I'm not even sure. They're already not making the playoffs. This is about what are they going to do in September?
Well, they haven't had this team doesn't
judge. Let him ref.
This team doesn't make like they've missed the playoffs, but they don't lose. Like, they don't have losing records. 30 years. Like, there's so many questions that are going to be heading into the postseason, no matter what the outcome is. Even if they somehow shockingly get to a wild card game, they're going to be out one and done. So there are questions. Or you bring back Cashman, you bring back Boone, you bring back both of them, or 1-1 going. What are you going to do with Glaber? What are you going to do with all these guys? How are you going to make Stanton tradable? How are you going to make LeMahieu? Like, are you going to bring Peraza up? You're going to bring Dominguez. I just named about like 10 friggin' questions that the Yankees are going to have to answer. Like, the Mets already know. Look, we're going to be awful next year. We're going to try to bring these guys up and see what we got. Like, the Yankees, they're like, oh, maybe we're just going to run it back again with the same damn team and have no left fielder. Like, there are so many uncertain questions going on in this Yankee franchises. That's why, like, Met fans, yeah, we could say whatever we want about the Mets and how bad and how and probably the biggest disappointment, the 2 biggest disappointments are the Yankees and the Mets. But at least the Mets, they traded their 2 most valuable guys, I guess, at the time. And Scherzer to teams that wanted to go win.
Was bad move. They should have traded Lindor or Alonso, because now they're going to have to pay Alonso next year in free agency.
No, they're probably moving on from Alonso too.
They're going to bring him back. They're going to bring him back.
They just said they'll sign him and then they'll trade him.
Should have kept one of the pitchers, one of them, for next season, so you go in. And here's the thing, and you know this as well as I do when I make this statement. Cohen's just not going to go in and say, yeah, no problem. We're just going to go in and rebuild. You know he's going to throw money.
So he's going to bring in a piece or two. Okay.
He'll still bring a piece.
Right. A couple things. Number one, let's clear something up about the late 90s Yankees. The late 90s Yankees did not lead baseball in payroll. That's a huge misconception. That was the Baltimore Orioles that were outspending and still underperforming. Here's what the Yankees did do in the late 90s. They spent right. They brought in the right guys. They made all the right moves. One of the few moves they made that was poor was the Chuck Knobloch move. And even at that, he ended up becoming the starting left fielder in the 2000 World Series. So they were able to work that out. Since 2006, okay, where Joe Torre was like, I don't know what we're doing here anymore. This was where you went out and you started spending money on the Jason Giambis of the world and trying to Gary Sheffield and trying to buy your way.
A-Rod, Carl Pavano, Jared Wright.
So stupid. And the Yankees under Brian Cashman have continued to do that. Now, in 2009, he spent in a lot of the right places, and it immediately turned into a championship. To me, in my lifetime, that's the only actual bought championship the Yankees had. The rest of it, they did a really good job of bringing in veterans, going out when they needed to plug a piece and doing it. You need an ace, you go out and you get David Cone. That's what you do. That's the way the Yankees went about doing business. I'll also say, again, to Teddy's point, George Steinbrenner was a terrible owner. And Trevor, I'm sorry he put that World Series or bust, because I found every year the Yankees won the World Series, before the parade happened, I was already focused on winning another championship next season and didn't really enjoy any of it. And as I think back on it, it was like that should have been the most fun I ever had as a fan, but it wasn't because of the unrealistic expectations.
All right. So I'll take away.
And now think about it. In the last 23 years, you're talking about one championship. The idea of World Series or bust, it's an illusion. It's a disillusion. And as you just said, Trevor, how do you fix this team for next year? You have all these unmovable contracts. You have young players who, when they come up,
but it's almost terrifying to bring. It's almost terrifying to bring those players up because of the recent, like, not success. It's far from success. Is the failures that we've seen. Also, I'll take away the Steinbrenner thing. You know who also said winning, if it wasn't winning or failure? The guy that we all love in New York, the captain, number 2.
Yeah, but that was a different team.
I get it, but he still had the same. But he still had the same message. Is what I'm trying to say.
He's a joyless human being, Derek Jeter. I love that guy, but Derek Jeter, I'm sure when his beautiful wife was giving birth, I'm sure he was like, "Listen, that's one kid. We need 4." But not enough. Joe, we need 4 kids. And it's like, let's get working on the next
Joe,
one.
Your comment before,
that's the wrong mentality to take.
Joe, I thought your comment before was literally reiterating Jeter's thing. Because if you remember Jeter's like biography or thing, the story they did on him was, or when they did the series, he talked about that. Once they won, he enjoyed it for like a day or two. But then it was back to business. Trevor, I sent you the video the other day when they won the ALCS in 2009, when he was still on the roster.
Yeah, when they won the World Series.
He's sitting there on the top stoop, looking at the field with no emotion while everyone's celebrating, going, we didn't do anything. We still haven't won anything.
You know who also did that too?
Michael.
R.I.P. KB,
Michael
Kobe Bryant.
Kobe
was the same way.
Listen,
job's not finished.
This is 2023, and there's no one like that on the team. Judge can't be judge, jury, and dictator. Like the whole he can't and execution. He's not dictator. He's not that guy because
we don't like dictators.
Well, here's the problem. Judge is and Cole. Here's the issue. Judge and Cole are Boone-sided guys. They're all about Boone. They're in love with Boone and they entrust with Boone. If there's a major move that has to be done, it has to be Cashman. I get it. You can put another guy out there next year, whatever. People are still going to call for Cashman because he is the one that gave you the puzzle pieces, and you can't finish the puzzle because you're missing pieces. Like Joe said, you don't have a left fielder. Trevor, we talked about it. The Donaldson thing makes no sense. We love Gio. I get he had some issues and whatnot, but it wasn't like he was a bum. Gio was no bum. He was well like that. That was all about getting Gary Sanchez out there. Well, now Gary Sanchez is hitting 16 home runs for the San Diego Padres and actually looks good.
He's back, baby.
It's amazing the change in scenery for guys like you. And really, this is what it gets down to me, bro. You traded for Stanton. Okay, I get it. But you got the same guy when you had Judge. It allowed you not to go get Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper would have been a better fit for the Yankees. Hold on. A lefty and a field, and he could have
Machado would have been better. Machado
could have too, and all he does is rate.
Arenado could have been a better option.
But Arenado was never in the contention. You've been on that horse for like 12 years. Let it
go.
Good,
and I'm going to stick to it.
Okay, but Machado and Harper, think about it, they never even went for him. That's what makes it most because they knew they were going to have to pay Judge. They didn't want 5 guys with $300 million.
Here's the thing about let me ask you something. Let me say something.
The only move that Cashman has really panned out is the Cole move. That is the only move that's panned out for him significantly. I mean, maybe Chapman
let me say this.
He traded his guys, got Clint Frazier. Didn't work out. Trade for Gleyber. Really hasn't panned out the way. I mean, there's multiple guys that we could just run through. We have backup catchers. We were all on the Higgy world. Higgy sucks. Trevino had one damn good season. He's not a full-time catcher. He's a good Gold Glove guy that Cole loved, but he wasn't that good of a hitter. He had one. The problem is we love these guys is they have one good season. It's like pay him. Hey, Aaron Hicks played 156 games. He played well, did this or that. Let's give it 7 years, 7 million. Sucked. Severino.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. With these
The words are accurate because
okay.
that's
When it comes to drafting, too, a big part of this. No, look, it's not football, but you also have to have some sort of. If you can have a core moving forward, you can build off of that core. I mean, the Astros had
Debbie Garcia.
Okay, hold on. Think of the Astros core: Correa, Altuve, Springer, Bregman. Like that was their 4, and then they just added pieces around. Like, yes, I get it. We could say 2017. We were banking that the Yankees core was going to be the new future that was going to take us into,
who was the 4 that was going to be our future?
We at the time
was
Judge, Sanchez, Glaber, and Bird. Believe it or not. Like, we thought Greg Bird was going to be like the next, like, we had such high expectations. A lefty in Yankee Stadium, he had all the tools to be great, and he just didn't. It just didn't. Maybe because of development, maybe it's just the mindset that he had. But that's the thing too, is that the development. We started hearing people coming out now talking about how the Yankees farm system, they just don't really teach them anything pretty much.
Did you see that?
Either hit a long ball or that's it. Like,
minor league guy.
What kind of teaching is that? That's what I'm saying, is that this farm system of the Yankees, all we've heard for so long. Oh, the Yankees they've added to their farm system. I remember when they traded Andrew Miller and stuff like that, got all these pieces and stuff, and Chapman that year. They're like, wow, the Yankees, look at the resources they're going to have for the future.
Hey.
And it's very quiet, very silent in that future, because literally all these guys that we talked about, you know about Debbie Garcia, Joe, too, right? He's on Chicago. He's on the Chicago White Sox now. Like, yeah. I knew that from a couple weeks ago. I was just like, that's just another guy.
All these guys that we thought were supposed to come up never panned out last time. I mean, that's what makes.
So I blame that on the coaching too.
Here's the other thing, Trev. But remember, they fired their pitching coach last year. Remember, we got a new pitching coach. Remember the young guy who wasn't panning out no more. Oh, you know what we'll do this year? We'll fire the hitting coach right before the All-Star break, so we can let the guy come in, and hopefully that'll give him a fresh start. Sean Casey. How well was that panned out?
Joe, what do you think?
It comes down to the whole thing as an organizational failure.
Yeah, listen, I think when the season's over, I think if you're Hal Steinbrenner, just because someone's got to take responsibility for what ultimately happens. You can't just blame
Boone. Boone cannot be the fault.
Yes, listen, but if I'm guessing,
listen, if you fire Boone, you got to fire Cashman. You brought both back.
Based on the fact that you fired the pitching coach last year, your hitting coach this year, it would seem like they're trying to suggest it's in the dugout. It's the dugout. And so to me, Boone would. But now look, here's the thing. If you fire Brian Cashman, who wants this job? Who wants to come be GM of the New York Yankees? Sure, you're like, well, who wouldn't? This is a mess. This is a huge mess that the Yankees, and if somebody else has to come in here and clean this up, you're going to have to convince Hal Steinbrenner, by the way, to eat a lot of money, because there are people that you're going to have to either straight up drop or move in some way, and that's going to require eating money.
Yeah. Joe, Trev sent me a great article the other day, and it was the difference in Houston and the Yankees. And it was after Houston just won a World Series. I believe it was last year or whatever, Trev, you said. Was that what it was last year? And they fired their GM. And they brought over another GM from the Braves organization. And they haven't lost a step. So I would say
Yankees should go after Theo Epstein. He turned the Cubs around and
everyone always wants to go after Theo.
He turned the Cubs around. I mean, remember when before the Cubs won the World Series, the Cubs were so bad.
Yeah, Trevor, listen, if there's a guy that could do it and would be willing to take this on, and who Hal Steinbrenner would have to listen to, it would be Theo Epstein. I don't know who else is out there that you could bring in here, because I'm telling you, I'd say
who's working in the Braves organization. I'd say who's working in the Braves organization. That's what I want.
But here's the problem with that. It's like bringing Brian Dable over to the Giants, and it's like, do your thing here. Okay, we got a young roster. We got a young quarterback. We can develop these guys.
But he brought his GM.
You're going to bring somebody in from the Braves organization to be like, get me younger. How? It's an impossible task. This is why I'm saying you need a real GM like a Theo Epstein that's going to come in there and be like, listen, we're going to trade Giancarlo Stanton, and if that means eating 80% of the money, we're going to do it, Hal. And Hal's going to go, all right, man. And then you're going to have to figure out, a way to possibly unload DJ LeMahieu. And Donaldson is done after this year.
He's gone.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Severino's off the books. Herman's off the books, but you still don't have a left fielder.
Joe.
You still have a superstar in Aaron Judge who gets hurt too much. Are you bringing Bader back? No. Is Volpe really the future? Again, there's question marks at every single position except for right field.
That's what I'm saying. Because the future
and the one slot in your rotation. Other than that, everything's a question mark. And to me, if you ask me to preview next season, I think the Yankees are instantly the worst team in the American League East right off the bat.
Do you know what I said too?
Can I say one thing to you, Trev?
Go ahead, Ted.
To your thing, and I know you're getting mad. You know how you related to the Giants earlier in the conversation about the Giants and Joe Judge? You know what more likely this is? New England Patriots, bro. A stubbornness of Bill Belichick. They're old, they're slow, they're boring, they're not reinventive. He's drafting kickers in the draft. He's drafting tight ends and 3 guards, and it's like, bro, like you're bringing in Zeke Elliott. It's like, hello, you need receivers. You're bringing in Devontae Parker. He was good for like 12 years. Like, we're bringing in Donaldson when he was good 10 years ago when he was the MVP. Like, that's that kind of just flew in my head because you said Joe Judge. That was more of an organization.
I got something else.
More right on, but I would say the stubbornness.
I'll relate it more
as well as the Yankees of being the same model. That model has to break because I'll relate it more to
I'll relate it to the Giants even more, one step closer. Joe Shane had to come in and take over a franchise that was in salary cap hell. And he had to make some uncomfortable decisions. He had to get rid of Bradbury. Tried to trade because he had to get rid of some good players because their contract. Remember Dave Gettleman, what we just said a year ago? So, yeah, this is just like a Giants situation too, because the Giants, not too long ago, there was no future. There was no, I guess I should say, no light to the end of the tunnel. And Joe Shane somehow, had to make the uncomfortable trades, moves, situations that had to be done to get under that salary cap and to look at a year and a half later, we're talking about the Giants as a team that could potentially have that much of a greater future because of what Joe Shane has done. That's what the Yankees have to do to answer Joe's question. That's what the Yankees got to do. They got to have a guy outside the franchise. But
that's the owner willing to do that?
You're gonna have to, because if you've come to accepting that you're going to just be average, then okay, then stick to this. I'm fine with it. But if you want to make those changes, you're going to have to think outside the box. The New York Giants just had to do that. They finally went to go get people outside of the comfort zone. Look what happened in over a year for a team that had no right to be in the playoffs, let alone being in the second weekend of the playoffs last year. And look how fast the Giants franchise possibly has changed that quickly since Joe Shane and Dable. That's what the Yankees have to do. The Yankees are at this point right now in their franchise that, look, if you either want to stay put and run it back again, I'm fine with it. If you want to have to make those changes and go outside the box and make a GM change and make a manager change, I should say, as well, I'm okay with it. But at least I want to know what the direction of this New York Yankee team is moving into the 2024 season. Because if there's not, I don't care. Like, that's what I said. If they want to stand pat, at least I know the direction they have. That's all I want. Because at least the Mets, they traded some of their big name guys and probably are maybe going to move off in the offseason. Who knows? We do not know. But at least they're telling you, look, we got to start over again. It is. The Yankees are sitting there. Oh, we're the Yankees. We're going to just be fine because we're the Yankees. But that's the mentality that just should not be done.
Even Judge said it, though, when the conversation ended off. The Yankees still had this belief in their deep mind that they had a streak ahead of them. They still believed. Judge even said it. We thought we got a lot of baseball to play, another 40 games, and we had 1 or 2 streaks left in us, kind of right before he got injured, the streak that they were on, where they won, 15 out of 25 games. You're like, oh, all right, we got something here. The streak never came, and now it's too late. Well, and I think a lot of the Yankee fans are hurt.
They got 41 games left. What streak is coming?
Hold on. Listen, not for nothing, but earlier in the year when Teddy and I said this Yankee team is not very good, and Trevor insisted that we were bad fans. We gave up too early. The Yankees went on a nice 10, 12, right?
Yeah.
They won a bunch of games. They got really hot. Last time we had the same conversation, Trevor was still,
and I said by August 1st, you would know the decision based on who they were playing with the Rays, the Astros, the Braves, the Mets, and the Marlins. I said, we'll find out. I said, they'll either be in contention or they'll fall apart. And I think we got our answer.
Absolutely.
Well, I think, listen, like Teddy said, I think your bullpen is spent. I think they're so tired from all the great work they've done this season. Your rotation, again, outside of Cole, is kind of in shambles. You're not getting any kind of length from any of those guys. So where is this streak going to come from? Your offense isn't scoring. They've left 28 guys on base in the last 2 games.
Joe, 58 double plays since July.
Yeah.
And I wrote that down on Tuesday. Most in Major League, Gleyber had grounded into 16 double
and that's
plays.
That's another factor.
The last 6, and the other night they had 2 errors and 1 hit.
They can't figure out the fundamentals and basics of baseball.
So now that's where you're right on Boone.
How often have I said that, though? That, look, you look at the way that this team was built, and I mean, I guess the idea was they were going to be strong defensively, and that hasn't necessarily panned out at all. Again, for all the put LeMahieu at third, then you're taking a strength and turning it into a weakness and putting Gleyber in the field, and that's a weakness in and of itself.
Well, you have to play Gleyber because Stanton can't play the field. So
there you go.
You're fighting the foot that or the hand that feeds you.
This is such a poorly constructed roster, and it's caught up to them. And I mean, literally now this season and the whole last half of last season, it was the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the luck has run out, unfortunately. But listen, in the offseason, I'm thinking you need a minimum 3 starters.
Well, here's the thing.
You need at least 2 bullpen pieces. You need a catcher, a third baseman, a left fielder. That's a lot of pieces in an offseason.
One thing, Joe, here's the only one thing. Next year, based on health and out, you're going to have 4 starters coming back. You're going to have Cole at the top of the lineup with Rodon as your 2, Nestor as your 3, and Montez as your 4. Well, you'll have to figure out what happens with your 5th. But that's all assuming everything goes well for the rest of the season, no trades, and health. But if Trev, Cole's coming back, okay? Rodon's coming back. They're going to give him 6 years. We're just going to call this a wash year, and there's another year that we suck, and he sucked. And hopefully he pitches much better next season. And then you're talking about 1-2 aces. You're talking about Nestor, if he can come back to form, hopefully that wasn't a one-hit wonder like an 80s hit. Hopefully he can come back to 4. That's a nice 3. I mean, he was in the All-Star game. He showed, and then Frankie Montas, give me something, bro. Give me something. And then, listen, I think you're starting to see the Yankees, maybe Clark Schmidt becomes your 5th. They've started to stretch out Michael King in the bullpen. Maybe he becomes your 5th. Who knows? That's all possibilities, but it's a lot of questions considering we're still probably 6 months from any of those answers.
So what Ted just
said. And they're not getting Ohtani. The Yankees are not getting Ohtani.
Why even do that?
Like, I would want him.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want him? The move is, though, you do that, you got to just let Stanton go because Ohtani has to play BDH.
Look, they just got to clean house.
Stanton in the field.
To solve it really quickly, they have to clean house because right now it's been 20 years.
I don't know the last time the Yankees cleaned house.
And all I know is hopefully it doesn't get to 86 years. Because God, that must have been miserable to be 86 years. Because 20 years, yeah, we won a World Series during that time, but 20 years is brutal. I'm sorry, I don't care. I'm a spoiled Yankee fan.
Hey,
hate us all you want. Hate us all you want.
Who'd you have in the World Series? I think I had the Yankees Mets. How bad am I?
Let me look quickly.
But so you know what? So did everyone else, though. Yankees were the favorite in the entire AL to make the World Series, and I believe the Mets were like one of the top 3 teams. So
hold on.
Joe, I want to just change the subject for 1 second. I was talking with Trevor about this. Is the Braves organization, how that GM and that organization are able to sign their players to long-term deals, but value deals like Matt Olson, 6-7 years, like $160 million. It's like, how much is Judge really $200 million better than Matt Olson?
No, and again, listen, the Yankees have never done that. They don't offer extensions early.
They thought that would hit.
Dude, that's the rare exception they made. I will say this, as far as, again, a 7-year, $70 million deal at $10 million a year for a starting outfielder, if Aaron Hicks had hit 230 with 20 home runs a year, I'm sorry to say this, but that deal would have paid for itself.
Yeah.
The fact that he was barely in the lineup and the fact that when he was in the last 3 years, he's been worthless at the plate. Otherwise, $10 million a year for between Severino, 4 years, $40 million. If Sevy would have been the ace that we know he is, my God, that would have been a steal. It would have been a genius move. But again, and this is the unfortunate luck of Brian Cashman. Go out and get Sonny Gray. You go out and get Joey Gallo. Doesn't matter who you get because they're going to suck. Something's going to happen. There's going to be an injury. Frankie Montas. Again, it's like everything this guy does, you're like, oh, all right, yeah, cool. And then it doesn't pan out. Rondon's just the latest example of that. And then at this deadline this year, he was like, nah, nothing. I don't like anything I see. That to me, that's the beginning of the end here. Like we're not reloading anymore. I do think a full-on rebuild. I think Jason Dominguez should be your left fielder next year. I think Peraza has got to be on this roster. Maybe Austin Wells behind the plate. Maybe it's time to actually do what everyone else in baseball is doing. You bring your young guys up and you let them have that. Not for nothing, Anthony Volpe has been one of the best Yankee rookies ever.
Yeah.
And it's taken a long time, and the batting average is never going to quite catch up this season, but this kid's put together a great year because you gave him the whole year to do it. Mm-hmm. You didn't do it with Esteban Florio. You haven't done it with Jason Dominguez. Who else you going to sit on? You want to Chance Adams, another guy, or what?
Yeah. By the way, Ted, I had the Yankees against the Braves in the World Series. You had the Yankees and Padres. So at least I'm halfway right.
Oh, I did have the Padres.
Yeah. We both had one. So we both had one Soto winning the MVP.
And your question earlier when we never gave an answer, I don't want the Yankees to make the playoffs just for one game, so that the Yankees organization can say, "Oh well, we made another streak of 31 consecutive seasons in the playoffs." You know what I mean? I will
be stunned if the Yankees make the playoffs.
Stunned.
I finally, August 18th. It gave me a month and a half of the season left, and I said it's over. At least I finally said it.
But you know what? At least Ohtani's not getting in.
Yeah, both of those franchises need to look in the mirror and say, yeah, shame on us. Slap ourselves. Just somebody come Debo, get a Debo, bam, uppercut, wake up.
One last thing I got to say, listen, as far as the Mets are concerned, the money that they spent this year and then dumped all the salaries.
Yep.
I mean, it puts them over the threshold. They're going to owe a lot of money. And I know that guy's so rich and whatever, no financial implications. I disagree. And I think, listen, he's got to learn how to spend smart money. This isn't go out and get everybody. It's go out and get guys that make sense on your roster. And again, This is where Cashman's gone wrong. And it goes back to 2006. Gary Sheffield was a guy that Joe Torre wanted no part of. That's not a good clubhouse guy. I don't care how good of a bat he is. There's other bats. When you start changing the culture of a team, and that's what bad spending does. I think Francisco Lindor is the biggest asshole in all of baseball. He really is. He's not good for the Mets. He's not good for the fan base. He's not good for the culture. That's terrible money that they spent there. Spend smart. Look at not for nothing. You give Tampa a lot of credit for all they've done. This Wander Franco, he's a disaster, and they've got a ton of money tied up in that kid.
That's a messy situation.
That's the problem when you invest, Teddy, in the wrong kind of guy. And I was concerned that Ronald Acuna might be that kind of guy, but he's definitely turned it around. There was some stuff there with him and Freddie Freeman for a while. Yeah. And it seemed like Acuna might be the guy that ended up going. And obviously that's not how it panned out. But I think once Acuna got his way and saw he was the alpha in the locker room, he started behaving properly, and he's living. Obviously, he's having a dream season, but you got to invest in the right people and bring the right people together in order to be. It's not just throwing pieces together and thinking you're good. That's not this. That's never done anything for anybody in the history of sports. Look at the Brooklyn Nets.
Look at the Lakers when they had Carmelo, Gary Payton, Shaq.
Yeah, and then We're finally close shop. Let's see. Well, as all Yankee fans and Met fans, we're just waiting on football now. So that's all I got to say. I got nothing else
the
to say.
Yankees on tonight against the Red Sox. We got the
cares?
Giants on tonight. We got the Jets are on tonight.
It's a good time to be a New York football fan. A lot of excitement's around, I guess. So let's see how that. We'll be back next week talking about that stuff. We got to talk more NFL because NFL is only a few weeks away. Thank God. God, I hope, like Joe said, hopefully the Giants are good because if the Giants are bad, it's a miserable time again in New York. Ladies and gentlemen, you can check out Keys of the City on all social media platforms at Keys of the City. So follow us at Keys of the City. We are out.